The back is the most dominant position in jiu-jitsu and leads to the most effective submission, the rear naked choke. So in this video, we're going to talk about 4 invariants and harness the power of AI to improve your rear naked choke so you can put some people to sleep. In this video, we're going to talk about things that I've found to be true for all rear naked chokes, and we're going to refer to these things as invariants. And to start off, we're going to talk about the table stakes to apply a rear naked choke, and that is alignment, meaning we need chest to back connection and our head and strangle arm on opposite sides of our opponent's head.
The moment my head and my strangle hand end up on the same side, you've got no viable threat of a strangle on your opponent.
In order to maintain this alignment, we're going to need to stop our opponent's resistance.
We can stop extension, we can stop retraction, we can stop rotation, we can stop basing.
To facilitate their escape from the back, our opponent can look to extend their limbs to create base, which will ultimately help them break the alignment and escape the position. So as the attacker, we're going to need ways to deal with our opponent's resistance as they extend their limbs to create base. Now from the back, probably the biggest form of resistance is going to be our opponent trying to rotate between our elbows. So again, as the attacker, we're going to need ways to deal with this resistance of rotation and maintain our alignment. And finally, retraction can be very annoying as our opponent brings their arms in close to their body to protect their neck. So in order to apply a rear naked choke, we're going to need ways to deal with our opponent's resistance and maintain alignment. And then we're going to need to remove the obstacles in the way of the neck.
In all naked strangles, we have one arm going around the neck facing 2 defenders. We need some way to put those defenders somewhere else so they're not monitoring the neck.
Now we can achieve this in one of 2 ways, direct or indirect. And we're going to start off by talking about indirect. We've established that these are the 4 ways our opponent is going to escape the back. And if they're able to rotate on their own terms, they can misalign themselves from us. But as the attacker, if we're the ones forcing the rotation, we can turn it into a good thing for us. Retraction can be a very good thing for the defender, but if the attacker uses rotation to force a belly down scenario, now the defender's arms are forced into a state of retraction, which frees up the attacker's arm to shoot around the neck. Extension and base can be very good for the defender, and it can be used to facilitate a lot of their escapes. But as the attacker, if you can use rotation to force their limbs to extend for base, we've now removed the obstacles that were protecting their neck, freeing up our strangle arm for a good shot at the neck. So we can remove obstacles in the way of the neck through indirect means by forcing our opponent into extension, retraction, rotation, or basing.
If I'm using my limbs to extend to push you away to create space, good thing. If you are extending my limbs so I can't push you away, that's a bad thing. And so we're manipulating the same states.
So all of these things can be bad for us or they can be good for us. It just depends if we're imposing it on them or they're imposing it on us. Now let's discuss more direct ways of removing obstacles in the way of the neck. And basically what this comes down to is grip fighting.
Roll my wrist. That creates a little exposure of my opponent's pinky knuckle. Now from here, I just stretch my hand out and away as I peel that hand off.
We need to have reliable ways of removing the grip the defender has on our strangle arm. Now we can compromise their grip at the wrist like we just saw, or we can compromise it at the elbow. So if we're attacking a rear naked choke, this grip they have on our strangle arm is only structurally sound if their elbow is higher than their wrist. But if we push on their elbow, now we've compromised the structure of their grip, and they're forced to try and change grips, which frees up our strangle arm for a good shot at the neck. Now I don't hear a lot of people talking about manipulating the elbow, so if you want more information on that, I recommend you check out this video here, where we dove deep on manipulating elbow position to win the grip fight from the back, and people have found it to be very helpful. And what we're doing is finding effective ways to remove our opponent's grip from our strangle arm. Now another great way to remove obstacles in the way of the neck is by bringing your legs into the party and using them to trap your opponent's defensive arms, which now frees up your strangle arm to attack the neck. And if we ask our jiu-jitsu chatbot how to trap an arm from the back, it recommends that we do so from the underhook side using a cross grip. So now let's say we're struggling to trap the arm from the underhook side because every time we try, our opponent bridges to the overhook side. So now let's see if there's a way for us to trap the arm from the overhook side. But unfortunately, trapping the arm from the overhook side may not be likely. However, transitioning to the underhook side using a chair sit provides an opportunity to trap the arm effectively. Trapping arms with your legs is a great way to remove obstacles in the way of the neck, and it's rooted in the same principle that makes jiu-jitsu so appealing, which is to use our legs as much as possible and concentrate a large amount of our strength into a specific area of our opponent, which gives smaller people the ability to strangle and break the limbs of much larger opponents. However, it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows.
In order to pin someone, we need to control both their hips and shoulders, and on the back, we control our opponent's hips through our legs, and we control their shoulders with our elbows. And when we use our legs to start trapping arms, we do give up control of their hips. And a savvy opponent can use the mobility in their hips to free themselves from the position. And this is not specific to the back, it's just a general problem that we have to overcome when we're transitioning from pinning our opponent to isolating a limb or their neck to finish them.
If I want to attack, less of your body with more of my body, I'm going to have to give up some of that whole body direct control. And I'm going to have to pull more of myself to a smaller portion of you so I can enhance breakability and strangleability.
So maybe when we trap the arm, ideally we look to lock a bottom side body triangle, which does a great job of securing the arm in place and maintaining the majority of the control we have over our opponent's hips. Now this is a specific technique that I've seen being used by many people at the highest level of competition, and I think it's a great way of managing the risk involved with the isolation process, as we start to trap our opponent's arms with our legs, with the ultimate goal of removing obstacles in the way of the neck. But if we're struggling to keep the arm trapped, this can leave us susceptible to our opponent's rotation. And I envision a world where a computer would be able to watch you do jiu-jitsu and not only give you this type of feedback, but also provide concepts, matches, and resources for you to study, as well as drills, techniques, and games that you can play to help develop this skill. And this is what we're working on creating with the Outlier database. Now we're grandfathering in the first 2,000 people that sign up and giving them my $97 instructional for free, as a way of saying thank you for believing in this product and helping fund its creation. So if you're interested, check the link down in the description, and let's keep working through our invariants for the rear naked choke. So we've maintained our alignment. We remove the obstacles in the way of the neck, and our next goal is to achieve double closure. Now in an ideal world, we lock in a full rear naked choke under the chin, and we would have our elbow perfectly aligned with their chin so that we can cut off the blood flow on both sides of the neck. Now this is a beautiful thing to strive for, but in reality, it's probably not going to happen. But there are a few things to look out for to make this easier.
People always obsess over, am I attacking the blood here or am I attacking the ear? It's almost impossible to attack one without the other.
If we're attacking from the underhook side, our strangle arm is going to be our top arm. So if our defender's trying to get their back to the mat, this should be difficult for them to do because of our underhook, and they're turning in the direction that helps us align our elbow with their chin. So now we can get a good strong mandible finish. If we can't get our elbow aligned with their chin, we can always use a turning mandible strangle, where we force our opponent's chin to their own shoulder.
In the previous move, Placido was looking straight forward. This time, we're going to use the flat of our forearm to turn our training partner's chin to face his own shoulder.
So there are many ways to achieve double closure, but once we do, the final step is to maintain our position long enough to achieve the strangulation finish. Strangulations take time to work, so we need to maintain our finishing position long enough to get the tap or put our opponent to sleep. So to sum up the invariants of a rear naked choke, we first need to have alignment, with our chest connected to their back and our head and strangle arm on opposite sides. And we need to maintain that alignment as our opponent tries to resist, through extension, basing, rotation, and retraction. And our next goal is to remove the obstacles in the way of the neck. And we have both indirect and direct ways of doing this. And there are certain ways to achieve this that have more risk than others. And that risk is something we need to manage accordingly. Now we need double closure however we get it. And finally, we need to maintain our finishing position long enough to get this strangle. So now when I use this fancy terminology, it should make sense.
Sir, and you better buckle up. Now buckle this.
We start with chest to back alignment, with our head on the opposite side of our strangle arm. Our opponent is attempting to resist our pin through rotation. We use our underhook to counter this rotation and maintain our alignment, as we remove the grip on our strangle arm and opportunistically shoot in on the neck. We achieve and maintain double closure long enough to get the mandible rear naked choke finish.
And that's all she wrote.
Now the question becomes, how do we apply these invariants to our training? I personally think it gives us a beautiful lens to see jiu-jitsu through. Let's say I show up to class and today we're learning the technique of a power half Nelson. As we're drilling the technique, I'm mapping it out in my brain. If I have a chest to back pin and my opponent's giving me the resistance of extension and base, the power half Nelson is a technique to deal with this resistance. And then there's a few ways I can go from here. I can dive deeper into solving the problem of extension and base from chest to back pins. And I can ask my instructor or hop on the outlier database and do research of my own to see how other people are solving the problem of their opponent extending and creating base from the back. So another option to solve this problem is to take a scoop grip on their leg to break our opponent down to the mat. Or we can use a crab hook to make it hard for them to build base. Another way we can go about using this framework to study is by diving deeper into the half Nelson. And we can say, okay, we're solving the problem of extension and base from the back using a power half Nelson. Is there another position in jiu-jitsu that we can use the half Nelson pressure to deal with the problem of extension and base? And yeah, maybe we use the half Nelson pressure from top half guard to prevent the bottom player from wrestling up as we free our leg and continue our guard pass. Another route we can go is say, okay, we're drilling the power half Nelson right now to deal with extension and basing from the back. Can the power half Nelson also solve the problems of rotation and retraction?
Your opponent's trying to turtle. I can't do this with my chest here, but when my chest comes over, I can now link my hands into like a half Nelson, and this will drag him back. Okay, so he's trying to turn to turtle, and I should be able to pull him back, pushing his head forward, shoulder back.
So the power half Nelson can be used to solve the problem of rotation from the back as well. And if it can solve the problem with rotation from the back, can it solve that problem anywhere else? Okay, so we can solve the problem of rotation using a half Nelson. So maybe there's a way to use the half Nelson to force our opponent into rotation. And by imposing that rotation on our opponent, we turn it into a good thing for us. Or maybe we use it to impose extension on our opponent, and we can take advantage of that extension. And this is how I think we use this framework to effectively learn jiu-jitsu. And I'm very grateful to Greg for taking the time to share all this with me. So even if you're at a school that hasn't hopped on the game train, and you're learning techniques in the traditional manner, thinking about it in this way has helped me a lot, and hopefully you find it helpful as well.